In our first segment, we take a look at how Cape Town's tourism industry has coped with the global economic downturn and what strategies are in place to promote Cape Town in the upcoming tourist season. I spoke with CEO of Cape Tourism, Toit-Helmbold, and started off by asking her how much the global recession has affected the travel industry.
Our key source markets are under pressure and they will remain under pressure for the next few years. They remain very, very important. Cape Town relies for more than 80% of our tourism revenue on the traditional markets from Europe and America. So we have to maintain our presence there. We've got to look at how we can work to stabilize the demand in those markets. At the same time, we have to diversify the markets that we do business with, and we've got to look at the potential that sits within new markets. It does not mean we can just jump in head first without a plan. We have to have a plan, and we have to choose where we play and with whom we play, because it is very, very expensive and very tricky to get into those new markets.
Can we then touch on maybe what your strategy is to promote emerging markets coming to Cape Town? Let's look at Africa, Asia, South America. I'm sure you must have different strategies for each of those regions.
Absolutely. I think we've got to work on getting our intra-regional travel up in terms of Africa. The proximity of the African markets is good and important for us in lieu of long-haul travel that will remain under pressure as the price of oil and international currencies are very volatile, obviously. And of course, with climate change and those issues, people are really more and more questioning the morality of having a long-haul flight or a long-haul holiday. So our strategy is very different for each of these markets. One of the important markets as well being India. I think there's lots of similarities between our markets. There's a good affinity to Cape Town in particular. Middle East also important, particularly in terms of the time of year that visitors from the Middle East prefer to travel. Very important for us to boost travel in our winter and off-peak periods. We don't have a problem during our peak summer season. Hotel occupancy is very good then. The problem is during winter. The same applies to South America. Also a good potential to attract visitors in our off-peak period. Strategy, very simple, is to build relationship and networks first before we just run and start throwing money into those markets. We don't have the money to do that. So we've got to build the networks, and we've got to look at new ways of communicating through social media, the web, and just being smarter about how we go about things.
Mariette, what are your views on local tourism and promoting a culture of travel among South Africans to go and visit the great sites? Cape Town must be a very desirable place there.
Absolutely. I think the importance of domestic tourism remains a priority for us. Again, domestic tourism is a good, is a good thing to help us address seasonality with. There are very negative perceptions around Cape Town that we've got to overcome within the domestic market.
What are those negative perceptions? Sorry to interrupt.
Well, it ranges from the weather to perceptions on value and price. The perception that Cape Town is quite removed from the rest of South Africa in terms of the political landscape, etc. So all those things do impact on people's decisions to travel. Our strategy with domestic tourism is working with big events and interesting events in and around Cape Town, and we've partnered with Thompson's and low-cost carriers to put good value for money packages together around interesting events and to position Cape Town as a short city break destination for domestic travellers.
Are you able to give us an indication of the amount of tourists we expect to come to Cape Town this year, seeing that the global economic turmoil has taken its toll? Can you give us any figures there and some trends from the past and what you expect going forward?
At the moment, in terms of a slice and what the tourism sector is worth and the numbers that we're looking at, we receive about 1.3 million international travellers to Cape Town annually. The tourism sector is worth more than 14.2 billion rand per annum, and we're expecting moderate growth ranging between 3 and 4% for this year. So I think we have to be very realistic in terms of the kind of growth that we expect, and obviously that varies between the different markets. So I think the season will be slightly better than last year. That is certainly the feedback from the industry. Mixed reports coming in from the industry, and interesting patterns that we see in the way in which people are buying travel experiences, researching experiences, and actually when they arrive, the things they are doing that they would not normally have done.
Are you able to give us an idea of how much tourism contributes to the Western Cape's GDP? And around tourism, it has huge potential for job creation. It's quite a labor-intensive industry. What are your strategies around promoting tourism as a vehicle to boost job growth in the province here?
Tourism is a sector that really matters. Globally, it's the third largest sector in terms of economy, just behind the automobile and banking sectors. In South Africa, also a very, very important sector. In the Western Cape, tourism contributes to more than 10% of our GDP. More than 300,000 people are employed permanently in tourism, and obviously that does not include people who are indirectly affiliated to the industry in terms of service providers to the sector, part-time workers, etc. So the potential of job creation is very, very good. The key thing for us is to make sure that we can provide stable employment opportunities year-round for people. Ultimately, it's about the woman who works in the hotel and who in winter often needs to go home because there's no work for her. So we've got to look at how do we create opportunities for people to work year-round. So it all boils down to growing demand for Cape Town as a destination so that more travellers travel to Cape Town and more people get employed through tourism.
The upcoming tourist season happening right now, quite a few direct flights have been cancelled to Cape Town. I'm sure this must be a concern for you. What is your short-term strategy looking here as the tourist season approaches to really promote Cape Town as the destination, world-class tourist attraction that it is? What are your plans around that?
Although some key routes have recently been under pressure and South African Airways have cancelled the route between Cape Town and London, there is some very good growth in direct flights to Cape Town. More than 16 international airlines fly directly to Cape Town. As is typically the case when the season arrives at the end of October, a lot of these international carriers increase their routes to Cape Town, and those range from British Airways to Lufthansa to Emirates, etc. Turkish Air will also increase their number of flights to Cape Town with four flights. But the challenges to us remain to make sure that we can create an enabling environment for these airlines to operate year-round. Again, it doesn't really help us when airlines only fly to us in summer. We need them to fly year-round. And again, airlines will only fly if there's a demand for the route year-round. So really it all boils down to us working harder and smarter to build a demand for Cape Town around the world and a desirability to come and visit the city.
Finally, Mariette, going forward, what for you is going to be the key focus of Cape Town tourism?
Our key focus in the next few months to come remains on building demand for Cape Town and addressing seasonality. Those are our key objectives. They might sound simple, but it's a huge challenge we face. Competition around the world is tougher than ever before. The economy is under pressure, and people have changed their travel behavior fundamentally. How we adapt to that change and how we remain absolutely single-mindedly focused on growing tourism is of critical importance to us. We remain passionate and excited about the opportunities for tourism in Cape Town. We only attract 0.1% of the world's tourists, so the potential of growth is magnificent.